Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. We'd love to go deep around here, and today we're going deep into The Fifth Element.
That's right. Luc Besson's 1997 sci-fi classic.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at the treatment of time in the film.
Yeah, and how it's not just a straight timeline.
Right. It's kind of playing with those ideas of past, present, and future.
We're also going to be unpacking the really unique visual style of the film.
Those unforgettable costumes.
Lilu's bandage outfit.
Oh, yeah. Iconic. And of course, we can't forget that central theme, the power of love.
Yeah, how does that stack up against technology and humanity's flaws?
A lot to unpack.
A lot to unpack.
So let's start with that concept of time. I mean, it's not just a backdrop in this movie. It's practically a character itself.
Yeah, it really is.
What really struck you about the way Besson plays with time in the film?
Well, I think the most obvious thing is that the film just jumps around a lot. We're not just in this futuristic 23rd century. We're thrown back to ancient Egypt, and there are these hints of cyclical patterns, like this idea of the great evil returning every 5,000 years.
It's almost like he's suggesting that history isn't just something we leave behind.
Yeah.
It keeps coming back around. It influences the present.
Right.
And think about that opening scene in Egypt. I mean, it's not just there to look cool.
Yeah.
It sets up this whole idea that the battle between good and evil, this is a recurring test. And we're just dropped right in the middle of it.
It really adds a layer of urgency to the whole story, too.
Right.
Corbin and Lilu aren't just trying to save the world. They're trying to break this cycle, this pattern that has been going on for who knows how long.
Right. Like they have this opportunity to maybe rewrite history.
Exact.
To change the course of this whole, cosmic dance between darkness and light.
I love that cosmic dance.
And speaking of rewriting history,
Mm.
We've got to talk about Lilu. I mean, talk about a fresh start.
Right.
She's literally reborn from a single hand.
Yeah, what a visual metaphor for, starting over, even when everything seems lost.
Absolutely.
And ties into that idea of cyclical time as well. Destruction leading to creation, the end of one cycle, giving birth to another.
And it's not just Lilu. I mean, the whole planet's on the verge of destruction.
Right.
But there's this underlying sense that maybe something new, something better could emerge from all this chaos.
It's hopeful.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how Besson doesn't shy away from showing us, those not so great parts of humanity, the greed, the violence,
Yeah.
the potential for self-destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But he also gives us these glimpses of our better nature,
Yeah.
the qualities that maybe make us worth saving in the first place.
I think it's that contrast that really makes the film so compelling, that tension between light and dark, and you can see it reflected in the visuals too.
Yeah.
The costumes, like Lilu's bandage outfit.
So striking.
Already
It's
played.
become iconic.
It has.
But I feel like it's not just about, looking cool. There's something more going on there.
It definitely tells us something about the character. It's almost alien, yet strangely familiar, kind of reflecting her role as this being from another world trying to understand humanity.
Just trying to figure us out.
And then you have Zorg with his completely over-the-top outfits, that wild hair.
He's like a flamboyant supervillain straight out of a comic book.
Exactly. Besson's having fun with it.
He is.
But there's meaning there, and the sets, too, are just incredible.
Oh, yeah. Future New York.
This chaotic, vibrant, densely packed world.
Flying vehicles everywhere.
Towering skyscrapers, and it feels familiar and totally alien at the same time.
It really does.
And the color palette,
Bold.
those primary colors,
Xeon.
really make it pop on screen.
Okay, so we've touched on that visual style, but what about the heart of The Fifth Element?
Yeah.
The power of love. I mean, this isn't just some cheesy romance. This is like a cosmic force.
It drives the whole narrative.
It really does.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how Besson portrays love in this film?
Well, it's interesting because I think he kind of subverts a very common sci-fi trope.
Right.
Usually, humanity is saved by some advanced technology or some amazing weapon.
Yeah.
But in The Fifth Element, it's love, which is decidedly not technological.
Right.
That proves to be the most powerful weapon of all.
And it feels especially relevant now, I think.
Mm.
In a world where technology is kind of, maybe outpacing our humanity a little bit.
It is.
Besson seems to be saying, hey, we need to remember the power of love, the power of connection.
If we want to survive as a species.
Yeah, and I think it's not just about romantic love, although that's definitely a part of it.
Right.
It's about compassion and empathy and recognizing that spark of good in each other, even when we're surrounded by darkness.
Yeah, and that brings us back to Lilu.
Right.
You know, she arrives on Earth with this really idealized view of humanity, but she is very quickly confronted with all of our flaws.
Our imperfection.
The violence, the greed, the self-destruction.
And she even asks at one point, what's the use of saving life when you see what you do with it?
Such a powerful question.
It's heartbreaking because it's a question I think a lot of us grapple with,
Yeah.
Is humanity even worth saving?
Big question.
It's a tough one. And the film doesn't give us an easy answer,
Right.
but it does offer, I think, a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Lilu ultimately chooses to believe in humanity,
Mm-hmm.
not because we're perfect, but because we're capable of love, of change, of fighting for something better.
And that's what makes her such a compelling character. She's not just this powerful being, she's a symbol of hope,
Yeah.
This reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always a spark of light within us.
Always that potential.
Always that potential.
So we've talked about time and visuals and love. What about the role of technology in all of this? I
Yeah.
mean, the film is full of these futuristic gadgets and weapons, but it also seems to be sending a message about, the potential dangers of kind of unchecked technological advancement.
Right. Think about Zorg.
Mm-hmm.
He's obsessed with power, with acquiring, the most advanced weaponry, but ultimately it's his technology that leads to his downfall.
Right. He becomes a slave to his own creations.
He does.
He's like the ultimate cautionary tale.
He is. He shows us what can happen when technology is driven by greed and a lust for power.
And it's such a stark contrast to Lilu, whose power is rooted in love and compassion.
Right.
It's only when she embraces those qualities that she can, truly activate the power of the five elements and defeat the great evil.
It's like the film is saying that technology itself isn't inherently good or bad. It's all about how we choose to use it.
Right. In the wrong hands, it can be a tool of destruction.
But in the right hands, it can be a force for good.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on this whole idea of the role of technology in the fifth element? Do you see any parallels between the film's depiction and our own world today?
Ooh, good question.
We'd love to hear your perspectives.
Let us know.
But we're going to keep going deeper into the fifth element when we come back right after this.
Stay with us. One thing that always strikes me about the fifth element is how it manages to blend these really big philosophical ideas with this incredibly playful, almost over-the-top style.
It's a tricky balance to strike.
It is.
You've got these profound questions about time and humanity, the universe, but it's all presented in this visually spectacular, action-packed kind of way.
Exactly. And I think the music plays a huge role in setting that tone.
Oh, absolutely.
Eric Serra's score is so eclectic.
It is.
Blending orchestral elements with electronic beats and these almost operatic vocals.
It's like the soundtrack to a cosmic carnival.
I love that.
It really captures the energy of the film, that sense of chaos and wonder.
And speaking of carnival, we have to talk about Ruby Road.
Oh, Ruby Road.
That character is just pure entertainment.
He is.
Chris Tucker is brilliant in that role.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He brings this incredible energy and charisma to the character.
Yeah.
And even though, Ruby Road is mostly there for comic relief, he actually plays a pretty crucial role in the story.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about it. He's this flamboyant, over-the-top media personality, always surrounded by cameras and microphones.
Right.
He represents this kind of hyper-consumerist, media-saturated culture that's taken over the world.
Oh, he's like a walking, talking commentary on the excesses of our modern world.
Exactly.
But at the same time, he helps to expose Zorg's evil plan and ultimately plays a part in saving the day.
Right. It's like Besson is saying that even in this chaotic, superficial world, there are still people who can make a difference, people who can use their platform for good.
It's subtle,
Yeah.
but it's definitely there.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that overall theme of hope that runs through the entire film.
Yeah.
This idea that even in the darkest of times, there's always the potential for positive change.
And I think that's what makes The Fifth Element so enduring.
Yeah.
It's a fun, action-packed film with incredible visuals and memorable characters, but it also asks some really big questions about humanity and technology and our place in the universe.
And it does it all with a sense of humor and a wink to the audience. It's like Besson is saying, hey, let's not take ourselves too seriously. Let's enjoy the ride and maybe learn a little something along the way.
I love that.
And I think that's why it resonates with so many people. It's entertaining and thought-provoking.
It is.
You can watch it multiple times and still discover new layers of meaning.
Absolutely.
And one of those layers, I think, has to do with the idea of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the film, characters are constantly faced with choices, both big and small, and those choices ultimately determine their fate and the fate of the world.
Yeah, think about Corbin.
Right.
He's this former military pilot, kind of down on his luck, a little cynical, world-weary, just trying to get by. And then Lilu literally falls into his life.
She does.
And he's forced to make a choice. Is he going to help her or not?
And that choice sets in motion this whole chain of events that leads him to confront his own past, his own beliefs, and ultimately to become the hero he never thought he could be.
Exactly. And it's not just Corbin. Lilu has to make choices too.
Oh, absolutely.
She has to decide whether to trust humanity, whether to believe in our potential for good.
And her choices have even bigger consequences. I mean, the fate of the entire universe hinges on her decisions.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is.
But it speaks to the power of individual choice. You know, even in this vast, seemingly indifferent universe, our choices matter.
They do.
They have the power to shape our destiny and the destiny of those around us.
And it's not always about making the quote-unquote right choice.
Right.
Sometimes it's about making the best choice we can with the information we have and then dealing with the consequences.
Yeah. The fifth element doesn't shy away from the messiness of choices. There are no easy answers, no clear-cut right or wrong.
Which brings us to a question for you, dear listener, thinking about the major choices made in the film by Corbin, by Lilu, even by Zorg. Which one stands out to you the most and why? So we've been talking about choices and how the fifth element really makes you think about the impact of those decisions. But there's another element at play here, pun intended. Destiny, this idea that some things are just meant to be.
It's interesting how the film kind of balances that individual choice with this sense of predetermined fate. Like Corbin, he might be this average guy just living his life, but he's also the chosen one, the one who's destined to find Lilu and save the world.
Right. He even has that whole prophecy hanging over his head.
Yeah, he does.
But it's not like he blindly follows his destiny.
Yeah.
He stumbles, he questions.
Yeah.
He even tries to walk away at one point.
Yeah, and it's that struggle, that tension between what's expected of him and what he wants to do that makes him such a relatable character, I think, because we all grapple with those feelings.
Oh, yeah.
This feeling that, we're meant for something bigger, but also the fear of what that might actually entail.
Absolutely. And Lilu's journey is fascinating, too.
Yeah.
She's created for this very specific purpose to unite the five elements and defeat the great evil.
Right.
But she also has to choose to embrace that destiny. She has to learn about humanity, about love, about what it means to actually fight for something you believe in.
It's like Besson is saying that destiny isn't just some predetermined path. It's something we create through our actions, through the choices we make. And it's never a guarantee. There's always the possibility of failure, of things going wrong.
Which brings us to Zorg. I mean, he's driven by this ambition, this desire for power, but ultimately he's a pawn in a much larger game. A game he doesn't even fully understand.
And that's the tragedy of Zorg.
Yeah.
He thinks he's in control, but he's ultimately being manipulated by these forces that are just beyond his comprehension.
It really makes you think about the nature of free will. How much control do we really have over our own lives? Are we all just playing our roles in some grand cosmic drama?
I don't know. Those are some deep questions.
They are.
And I think the fifth element kind of invites us to consider these questions without necessarily giving us any definitive answers.
Yeah.
It's a film that leaves you thinking, debating long after the credits roll.
And that's what makes it such a great film.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about escapism. It's about engaging with these big ideas.
Yeah.
Exploring the possibilities of what it means to be human in this, universe that's full of wonder and danger and beauty and chaos.
It does all of that while still being incredibly entertaining, visually stunning, and full of heart.
Exactly. And it celebrates the power of love, the importance of choice, and I think that enduring spirit of humanity in the face of overwhelming odds.
It really does.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the fifth element, we want to leave you with one final thought. If you were in Corbin's shoes, faced with the choice to either walk away or embrace your destiny, what would you do? Would you step up and fight for what you believe in, even if it meant risking everything?
It's a question worth pondering, and encourage you to continue the debate, share your thoughts and insights with us, and keep exploring the boundless world of the fifth element.
Until next time, thanks for listening.